What's up, everybody? It's your boy. Round two's in the books. Let's talk about the conference finals and the finals. Final episode of 21-47 playoffs, Zachetology. We'll start from the bottom and go up. Hawks versus the Heat. We all knew the Heat were going to demolish the Hawks. They did exactly that. The Hawks just are an aging, not very good team, and the Heat are kind of a machine, and they look like a machine just across the board domination. Their defense is stifling. They've got enough offensive contributors. They're cruising. The Magic versus the Celtics, an amazing series. It only went 6 games, but it had all the vibes of a 7-game series. I think there were 3 super close games by one possession. There was a overtime game. I forget if it was multiple overtimes. We had some crazy stat lines. We had the Shaedon Sharpe 50-point bomb. Looking at the stat lines and everything, I do stand by my take that the Magic are the better team. They just didn't have home court. Which is an important thing if you want to win. And just some unfortunate luck. I don't know. The Celtics did what they do in terms of crushing the boards. And if you look especially at that very final game, that overtime game, and you look at the rebounding margin differential, it is wild. Gasper doubled the rebounds of Jake. But it's just these weird timely contributions the Celtics keep getting, like that Diana Taurasi pop-off game. I forget which game it was, where it's just you're like, damn, good fortune for Gasper. I know Diana Taurasi is a fine player, but there was a Richard Johnson pop-off game, and it's just it's so inconsistent, but it's working. Credit to Gasper. He's made it this far. The downside is I think the fun ends here. The Heat are just a really well-rounded team. The big problem for Gasper is where is the defense going to come from? Look, rebounding is great and all, but someone needs to be able to defend Tezuka, and I'm not sure Gasper has a really high-quality, tall, athletic perimeter defender. Harold Guzman is kind of your best bet, but he's not athletic. He's not really tall. All of Gasper's guards are 6'3". He has some shooting guards who are 6'5", but they're not defenders of any type. You have the specialty shoopiness as a defender, but it's do you move him to point guard? I don't know. Some tough decisions. I think the Heat just pose matchup problems. I also just think that the Toilet Atlas, Compton Classic, Richard Johnson front court, it's interesting. It's going to get torn apart by that Arthas Olin Harris front court. I don't think there's a lot of drama that's going to come from this series. I think the Heat will roll. I think I'm feeling 1 for Gasper. I don't really love this Celtics team. Like I said in previous episodes, I think it needs some refining, and then it could be good. It's an interesting team, though. I like the fact kind of a build that's not common has made it this far, even if it is in a weak East. In the West, the Nuggets beat the Sonics, the Sonics beat the Nuggets. Blah. We've seen this series before. The Sonics are a better team, and Lester McQuaid is an MVP player. It's just really just comes down to that. We could talk about Erskine Abdul sucking till the end of time. Actually, for what it's worth, we saw Erskine Abdul probably have as good of a series as he's going to have. Erskine came into this series under 500 true shooting, and after this series, he stands at 53% true shooting. So just mathematically speaking, Abdul was in the high 50s on this series from true shooting, and the team still lost. I think all that is to say is a credit to the fact that the Sonics team is just absolutely ludicrous. I mean, the Jazz, we're in this weird steroid era where the average player in all these drafts sucks, but the top end teams, the Sonics, the Jazz, the Heat, are just these behemoths that I think are, even if the Jazz are the only one to come out with a title, I think all of these teams would match up favorably with past champions. For the Sonics, the big news here is that the Cheaty McCheaterson season is finally happening. I mean, you look at his previous playoff numbers and you look at his playoff numbers now, and I mean, you'll get fucking whiplash. It's crazy. He is at 69% true shooting on 25 points a game. This is kind of the Cheaty McCheaterson that was always prophesized. Is the points per game high enough to beat a team like the Jazz? I don't know, but at some level, if you're getting the line that he's putting up right now, you can't really ask for much more. This is some insane basketball he's playing. Seth Charles has been not as good, 55% true shooting, although he did have to deal with a McQuaid matchup. And then the final pillar of the Sonics trio, J.D. Davison, has just been solid good. 60% true shooting, 20 points per game. He's definitely the third rung of the trio, but he's still quite good. So Yeah, Cheetah McCheaterson finally breaking out is probably what got the Sonics this win over the Nuggets. But the Sonics look like, again, they're continually going to the Western Conference Finals and continually disposing of a very good Nuggets team. I think that's 3 times in a row. The Jazz annihilate the Clippers. Not a lot to talk about here. The Jazz are absolutely ridiculous. Mike Mortar got shut down by Ricourt. It's one of those tough things where it's like Mike Mortar only fouls 2.5 times a game on average. A little over 2.5, 2.7. That might be too foully to match up against Ricourt. I don't know what McQuaid averages for fouls. McQuaid is at 1.9, and Seth Charles is at like even less. I think Seth Charles might be like 1.5. Seth Charles 1.3. The question is like, do you really need one of these centers who are just incapable of fouling to play against Ricourt? Maybe the case. The Clippers, I didn't think were a championship contending team. They were a tier below the Nuggets, Sonics, and Jazz in the first place. We just saw that manifest. Elliot Thomas did better than I expected, though. I still don't like him. I know Doc loves him, and Doc has explained to me why he likes him. I'm still not sold, but he did impress me this playoff run. I think he played at his maximum value. So we're going to get the repeat of the series we've already seen a million times, the Jazz versus the Sonics. Is it going to be any different this time? The default, I think, is no. The only thing that's changed for the Sonics is Cheetah McCheaterson. Maybe he's had a year of growth, or maybe the numbers are just on his side, but the stats are so wildly different that it would appear that something has changed. Is that enough to overcome the Randy Brown Ricourt combo? Probably not. The Randy Brown Ricourt stats are still super good. It is unclear that anybody can stop them, right? Like Seth Charles is not any better at defending than Mike Mortar. He does not foul, which will be helpful. And then in terms of perimeter defense, Oleksandr Sirski is just as good as any Sonics defender, whether it's Cheetah McCheaterson, whether it's Teofilo Cabral, whether it's Randall McClellan. So the Sonics won't really be able to pose a better threat. And Randy Brown and Ricourt are just 2 dudes who can literally go for 50 together on the same day. It's wild. So I think the Jazz have to be favored. The Sonics, if this series always feels like it's kind of the default is for the Jazz to win 4-2 because the Sonics kind of pose a threat, but I think the Sonics need a little love in their favor. And I think the big hope again, Cheetah McCheaterson has got to have the series where I don't think he's going to be putting up 40 or 50. It's just the nature of the team. But if he can have a few of those games like he's had in this playoff run already, where he's taking only, 17 shots and he's putting up 35 points, that's the type of game that he needs to have to win the series, to be the difference maker. And, there's an argument to be made that, has Randy Brown lost a step? Can he play defense on McCheaterson? I don't know. He's been doing it against really good defense. So there's a little hope in there. I still like the Jazz. I'm going to pick the Jazz in 6 over the Sonics. Also, there's just an element of hey, these teams, if they just keep matching up, maybe eventually the RNG, it doesn't matter how good the teams are, the RNG comes out in favor of Seattle. I think Seattle's been within that margin the whole time, but the Heat or the Jazz do seem better, although I thought this would be the season it changes. I think I haven't looked as much at the future outlook of the West, whether the Jazz are going to continue to go down. Obviously, Randy Brown is very much on the clock. When that clock will change and impact him remains to be seen. Will it be next season? He'll probably take a slight step back. 33 and 34 years old is really when we begin to see the hits come. So the Jazz might have one more season in them. I don't know their contract situation, but it'll be interesting to see. All right, finals. If we get Jazz versus Heat, I'm excited for Jazz Heat or Sonics Heat. I think all these teams are great matchups. I think both teams split series against each other in the regular season. I do think the Jazz still are the best. We've just seen Olin Harris, for as amazing as he is, not have what it takes to beat Ricourt. In fact, he's been smoked by Ricourt. So I'm of the opinion that will continue to happen. Tezuka versus Randy Brown, super interesting. I think both of those guys will play well. But if anything, I do see Randy Brown coming out on top. Do I think it'll go 7? I don't think so. I think maybe I'll go with the Jazz in 6, but it would still be a great series. I would love to see it. So I won't write it in, but I think I'm picking the Jazz to win it all. Jazz Heat. But goddamn, would it be sick if the Sonics could find their way to the end. So those are your predictions. I hope you enjoyed the 2147 season. And until next year, toodles.